Deanna Shaw and Karen Rowe. And we have Bill Seedor is the Code Enforcement Officer, and Lisa Scott, the Community Development Director. I understand Patrice Kent, legal counsel for the city, will be here shortly. So, who's taking the lead for your group here?
Well, I was going to, Mayor Sherry, I was going to introduce everybody, but you did a nice job of that already.
Sorry to steal your
I feel like I'm on the radio right now.
I don't remember these being recorded.
So, as you know, we have a homeless camp in our parking lot, and we're doing the best we can to make everything work well. And so I'm going to turn this over to our council president, Deanna Shaw, to fill you in on the details.
Congratulations on your new position.
Yeah, I don't know about that yet. So, part of the reason we wanted to come talk to you is we understood that there had been some initial discussions about county participation in the tassel, but nothing had come really together. So we wanted to come and put something formally before you, or also maybe hear whether there was something in the works that you would have. But I don't know of anything, and the mayor didn't know of anything.
Well, I met for several months with the former mayor, Mayor Larson. Lisa was in attendance at those meetings, a few of them. Chief Shoemate and Chief Hubbard were also in attendance. I can't think of anyone else from the city that was there. We talked about building a shelter for working with. We talked about the need for a shelter and working with the city. We recognize that there are a lot of homeless in the county, and because of the services in the city of Aberdeen, a lot of them kind of congregate in and around Aberdeen. So we understand that. The discussions that we had kind of fell by the wayside. We reached a point in June that the then mayor was faced, I think he thought he was faced with the decision to do something different than because of the federal court cases that were being discussed at that time that involved the city, and that he wanted to was in the process of closing the river camp. We hadn't made a decision at that particular time which direction the group was going to go, and he unfortunately he indicated that he just didn't have the time to wait and have us do the work that we were planning to do. I believe Tracy Munger is as well as our homeless staffing from Public Health and Social Services were in attendance. So at that particular juncture, Aberdeen basically decided to go the tassel route, and the group disbanded. At that point, there was no purpose to continue. I can tell you, I did meet with the former mayor a couple of times, in addition to with the former mayor Copeland and Jasmine Dickoff as well. Based upon the numbers that we have for our county, we receive about $2.2 million in homeless housing funds annually, and of that amount, about $140,000 is unallocated that doesn't have strings attached. And so we were looking at how we could utilize that $140,000. We didn't get very far. We did receive from Ms. Kent, and it was sent to Norma and then forwarded on to me, and we had a conversation. We received a copy of a budget, but we didn't receive any formal request as to, we would like, of the $140,000 that's unallocated, we would like you, county, to consider contributing $30,000 or $90,000. The mayor had hoped that we could pay about $10,000 a month, roughly, to help with security, and that's not what those funds are for. When you look at the definition by state law and federal law of what is considered homeless, the tents don't fit into that category. So I'm willing to, I can't speak for the other two commissioners, I'm willing to have a conversation and discuss on how we could partner together, but it has to be that partnership. We can't, I'm not, Randy's actually over public health and social services now as the new liaison for 2020. But I don't know that going back and starting at the drawing board again is where we need to go. But I think that there needs to be a clear understanding of what the city needs and what the city's expectations are from the county and how we might be able to address those needs and concerns.
Good. Partnership was exactly what we were hoping to talk about today. And we do have a request that Lisa Scott has put together our expenses. We are, our goal in the near term is to, the funding for the temporary shelter by City Hall runs out in mid-March. And our goal is to have something, an agreement with the county in place to help us make better decisions going forward. And we have, Lisa, if I hand this out, do you want to take them through it?
Yeah.
And then I can share some of our I can share our thinking on why we think that the funding that the county does get for the homeless and the unsheltered is a good fit and partnership with the tent site that we have. It's by what's
I did give them those.
did they have it?
If
We
the
didn't
trace
got it via
provided,
email,
yeah,
but
so
we
I
didn't know
printed
if they
it
had
for
it hard copy, so we brought some. Thank you.
So is this gonna be like a permanent location? Is it gonna be like, moving forward, should we expect this to be like a permanent location for housing for homeless?
Not by City Hall, no.
Okay.
I can, I have some, can share my thoughts. I made some notes on how I think that we kind of met and are thinking on how that we think that a temporary or a tent site is a good fit with the county's mission and goals on the Consolidated Homeless Grant and the 5-year plan until the county is able to partner with us or establish a low barrier shelter. We know that a low barrier shelter is a goal, but in the meantime, we have a population that needs to be served. And this tassel that we're operating is currently doing that now. And what that might look like after March is kind of what we want to work with you on. But we know that Grace Harbor County and CAP are the recipients of the Consolidated Homeless Grant, which within the guidelines to receive that grant state that the Consolidated Homeless Grant differentiates between the sheltered homeless and the unsheltered homeless, and that grantees must prioritize unsheltered homeless and households fleeing violence. That's one of the goals of receiving the Consolidated Homeless Grant. And we also know that we don't really have anywhere else to go but Grace Harbor County and CAP, because the county and CAP are the only entities on Grace Harbor eligible to receive the homeless funds from the state. And so a partnership and assistance with you is about the only place we have, because Aberdeen is not in a position to sustain help for that large of a population of unsheltered on its own. We need a partner. And so the county's 5-year plan to address unmet housing needs in its strategies and vision statement includes a statement that the most intensive services will be given to those who are most in need in our community, those who have been homeless for a long time and face complex challenges. Every member of the tassel violating City Hall fits that definition. They've been homeless for a long time and we have to figure out what to do. So, and then another bullet that I have here about how what we're proposing fits your mission and goals is that your plan, the county plan, 5-year plan, establishes the goal of creating a low barrier shelter and estimates that it would cost $600,000 a year to serve 35 people at a time. It would be funded through local document recording fees, behavioral health supports, and support from various other community partners. Well, we want, right now, we're offering to be a 50% partner at less than half that cost. And we would be reasonable for the county to participate in this effort until the goal of a more permanent, low-barrier shelter is achieved. Because they're there now.
You think a low-barrier shelter will solve the problem?
You know what, I don't know. That's, I wasn't in on the discussion when you put that in your plan. I don't know.
I didn't
Yeah.
vote for it, but.
Okay, so what the county's, but it is part of the county's mission and goal now to have a low barrier shelter, but that's not going to be, it's not there now, but people are.
So right now, we've turned to focus a lot of our attention on the cold weather shelter. Hey, Patty, come on in and have a seat. And given, I can tell you that given, if you look at the information that I know I've provided Karen in the past, what we receive and the vendor that we utilize, which is CAP, as you mentioned, to provide many of the services, based on the resources that we receive, about 1 in 4 homeless. We did just allocate some of that $140,000 that I mentioned earlier to do the cold weather shelter that has been ongoing. I do think that it all comes out of the same pot of money. I do think that the county did step up to the plate when there was a need beginning around Thanksgiving time and housed that through the end of the year, and have worked diligently with Jeff Smith and some other folks to ensure that that program continues. Typically what the county does is when we have a request for services, we'll send out an RFP, which this CAP would, returned in a proposal for, et cetera. We don't typically contract out like this with one municipality, but if you have a request for us, that would at least give us something to start at. And so I'm looking at this temporary alternative shelter for 12 months. Is that what Lisa's going to guide us through?
Yes, please, Lisa. I
Sure.
lost.
So the.
You can go over here to this time if you want. It might be easier.
That's okay. I'm more comfortable standing. So I provided 2 budgets for you just for reference. The first one, I believe, is council expenses through December 2019. So this is what the city has spent between July and December of 2019 to set up the temporary alternative shelter at City Hall. As you can see, it's almost $157,000 to get that going. A lot of one-time expenses, but the majority of the expense really has been on security. And the second spreadsheet is what we anticipate moving forward for another 12 months for an alternative shelter location. So what that budget doesn't include is it doesn't include any potential property rental or property purchase. It's just straight out what it would take to get the alternative shelter set up, and then monthly what it would take to operate that shelter.
Was the Finn Electric property already purchased?
Yes.
And is that still one of your options?
It is still one of the options. That's why when we put the budget together, we didn't include property in that.
Because you may have it already.
We may have it already, or it may go off, if there's another suitable location that we just don't know about at this point in time. We just know that the electeds are much better at this than I am, but it can't stay where it's at. It's too small. We've got people on top of each other.
Not the best location for businesses either.
It isn't. It isn't. So.
You sold the river camp yet? The property that you used there?
No.
City purchase?
No.
That property actually is probably going to be used for that levy alignment.
We did put it out for bid.
I was curious what I was curious what the city's thought on that process was. Why did the city purchase that property?
I voted against it, so.
Okay. I'm just curious. I don't know if you voted on it for that or against that, but what was the thinking back then? Because I never really understood.
There were a couple reasons at that point in juncture. One is that the city had a longer range goal of creating more of a park-like downtown, off the downtown, included in our whole revamp for the Gateway Center, the Morgue, and then also extending visiting to the waterfront, and then also for potential levee alignment.
I can tell you why I voted for it.
Why did you vote for it?
I voted for it because that when under private ownership, where our hands were tied on dealing with a public health hazard of unsanitary, unsafe, untenable conditions. And so by purchasing property, we dealt with what I viewed as a public health crisis, and have been struggling to come to terms with it ever since. You learn as you go. We're learning more about this population. We're trying to all the time. But so I'm not opposed to selling it. I just think we've got a whole lot of other things going on right now that are keeping us busy, and it's not hurting to have it down there. So
I think that Superior Court basically said it wasn't an eviction process; it was more of a trespassing process. And, but I think that's hindsight. I was just curious the thinking of the council at that time for doing that. So I think that in itself created the problem that you have now with Boise, the decision, which is now it's public property, and now those are residents of the city, and therefore now you have to look at it.
but we didn't have Boise at the time. And all those things happened like this.
Well, when they're on private property, it's a trespassing issue. When it's on public property, then you have Boise that applies, and that's I think the
Except the judge did vote that that was a very unsafe piece of property due to the railroad tracks and proximity to the river.
Yeah, I don't doubt that that was unsafe.
It was not only unsafe there, it also has issues related to pollution in the river.
Our first responders had to respond quite a bit, and it was not safe for them.
There was a multitude of problems. It was just not a very good site.
Just curious.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So how much money does the city need in order to solve the problem? I mean, what's the...
I don't like the word solve the problem, because I
This is
would
a-
like to think that we are all in agreement we're never going to solve the problem.
King County spent $1 billion on homeless in 2018, and their problem's worse, not better.
That'd probably be about the right amount.
No, I'm just curious, what's the long-term plan? I
The long term, I would say that Aberdeen is trying to deal with a situation in the absence of the county, because it's the county that's charged with having a homeless plan, coming to the table with our communities and having the strategy. So that's why we're here today, because it is the county's housing, homeless, sheltered, unsheltered. It is a county.
So I guess
And so I guess that maybe that's a question that, do you have a plan?
my plan is different than my fellow commissioners. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much money the city would need in order to combat this problem. Maybe if you give the county some nuisance responsibilities, rather than, because you understand that the cities have purview over all your nuisance laws and items like that. So we can evict people off the property. You can. There's certain measures the cities can take, write ordinances and laws that would make it more difficult for people to set up in certain locations. We don't have that authority. All we have is a pass-through for dollars for homelessness. And personally, I think the Woolbury shelter is going to give you more problems, not less.
Well, I can only go by what the commissioners have adopted in the housing plan that is on the table before us, and we are, our view is that the county has a goal of establishing a little barrier shelter, but right now, the city of Aberdeen needs help dealing with the people that are going to be served by that shelter when and if we manage to get it up and running.
So you have, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You have about $126,000 need, roughly, right? Between the 88,578 and
Yes.
27,580. So are you, do you have an ask for the county?
It's on.
You have to get that.
No,
Oh,
I only did that on those sheets because I just wanted to lay that out first, so you have the copies for those.
Okay, well, it looks like they're pretty the same, but it's on the bottom, there's a comment. Yes, we are looking to essentially be 50% partners on operating a tent shelter. I'm not going to call it a low barrier shelter. There's literally no barriers, but it is a tent shelter until we can establish a low barrier shelter as envisioned by the county.
So,
One of the issues we're going to have to deal with is part of the homeless plan, and it is the county's homeless plan, but it's used as a plan and a document to provide how we are spending the money that we're currently getting. So at this point in time, as Commissioner Raines has said, all but $140,000 was committed, and at this point in time, there's another 50 of that that's been committed to the low barrier cold weather shelter. And that'll be coming up again. So we have to be realistic about what funds we have available to spend on that plan. The other problem comes in the legal aspects of what can be used as part of the state funds we get back on. It's supposed to be used for more permanent supportive housing. I'm not saying we shouldn't address this issue. I think we need to find a way around that and help support the temporary efforts, but it needs to be an ongoing review and procedure of how well we're meeting that need.
I have a question on the map. So it says our ask is a one-time expense of $25,000 and $14,000 per month for 12 months. Well, $14,000 times 12 is $168. That's more than we have to begin with. And another 45 is 213. That's more than your cost.
No, because that, the down below is just a monthly cost. So you take that number times 12.
The 88.
Those are monthly
I see what you're
expenses.
saying.
The 88,000.
Is a one-time.
One time.
And I guess it's on the commissioners to do. We came with what we think, we need, and it's, falls in your court. And I don't know, we don't know what you had available till we
Right.
came and asked.
Right. So, I want to say we did for the low barrier, or for the cold weather shelter, we did 30,000, which would leave us flexible, unallocated of about 110. I guess 110 would help more than anything would help. But we also have to make sure that that amount is, there are certain things that those funds can be used for, and they can't be used for security.
We can call it whatever you want, but
So
until.
we also have a camp post that will need, I guess my question would be, why can't it be used for security, number one, and number two, we also have a camp post position that we would be hiring for. Is that something the funds could go towards?
I was under the impression that Cassie and Curtis were going to be here this morning, and I'm not sure why they aren't. But that.
So I think that in our meeting last week, and I wish our city attorney was here, because the assertion that it can't be for security, she told us that she looked into that, and it's not as black and white as that. But I would say that we have the security because we've not had the security to actually attain a host, because we have not had a longer term plan. And so if you're going to advertise, you see what I'm saying? But it cannot be unsupervised. And so you can call it security, you can call it supervision, you can call it whatever you want, but it has to have somebody on site. And that was our solution.
Like a shelter director.
Absent being able to put.
Security is just the easiest word.
Right.
Well, that's what you're using for it.
And what-
though. Am I correct? Are you
Yes.
not using?
But we're using that in lieu
We have
of.
security,
In lieu
not
of being
local law
able-
enforcement. We have security.
In lieu of being able to install a host, because we've not been able to create a position with any kind of security that anyone would bid on, or, if you're only funded through March, it's kind of hard to find somebody that will, be a vendor to provide the camp host. And so that's part of.
We could call it camp organization, because pretty much that's what they do.
But we don't know why that money couldn't be used for those things then.
So would it be agreeable to this group, and I know Patrice isn't here, and if you need to check with her, I get
Sure.
that. But with Randy being the liaison to public health that oversees that homeless housing and affordable housing funds, maybe you could get with Cassie and Curtis and meet with this group.
That's
And,
exactly what I was hoping.
and then we could
I
come
think
back
that's the
to
only way,
us.
that's how we have to try to.
Because
resolve
this is still a
because-
workshop, right? So I know you can't decide something here. I was hoping that maybe that you would direct in your meeting today, declare your intent to partner with Aberdeen on serving this population and task one of you to come work with us to come back with something.
Well, I would like for us to have that conversation first. In the meantime, it will also give us an opportunity to talk with staff to see what we've committed, what's not committed or unallocated currently, that we might be able to work with the city in addressing, and then bring it back to the full board to have that conversation. I would venture to say you might get a little bit of mixed reviews. Not sure, but I'm gonna guess that you might get a little bit of mixed reviews, but I think that if you have all the information going forward, that would be great. I was really disappointed to see the earlier meetings kind of fall by the wayside. I know that some of the staff from both the cities was not too keen on the facilitator that we had hired, but that was more so that I didn't have to lead meetings and guide us in a direction that I could actually participate with them. And it was, that was frustrating, and it wasn't just Aberdeen folks that weren't happy with that. But I think that having a real meat and potatoes conversation with the group and including our housing coordinator and social services manager would be the first step, and then bringing
That's
something
definitely the
back.
next step.
Well, one of the things that I took hope for from in reading the plan is that in the numerous places where it stresses that this is supposed to be a living plan, it's not carved in stone in any year to year, and at any given time, the county is poised to take advantage of potential partnerships and regroup. So that would be great.
Lisa?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one thing on the budget too. I think it's important to note that the city has, the city of Aberdeen has agreed through the tassel currently to go through March. So the
March
budget,
15th, isn't it?
yeah. So the budget you see does not include those last 3 months. It's only for the 12 months of December because that's the data we had. So the council has agreed to spend up to, I think, $245,000 to get us through to the end of March 15th, as a total. So that's what we've spent, what we will come close to spending between July and March.
I think that we're going to need some information from the city as to you have a variety of options and where are you going?
You know, some of that, it is a little hard to say right now because, as you know, we just completed an election. We have 5 new council members. So one of the first things we're doing is we have a workshop scheduled on January 29th because there are some important decisions that the new council is going to have to make. And so on January 29th, it is our hope to bring everybody up to date so that we have a fully informed council when it comes time to make a decision or when we bring in something, a proposed agreement from the county. We want everyone to know, get everybody up to January. And so it's, nobody can speak for the council at this point. I'm elected to speak for the council, and I can't until we have that meeting later this month.
Oh,
We
and
have-
I'm not saying we need it right away. I'm just saying you've got some time between now and March, and having a clear direction within the next, 6 to 8 weeks, I think would be very helpful.
So I'll give you my perspective.
Come on.
I think that, bearing, I can understand the city wanting the county to bear some of the finances involved with, what you guys are going through. I completely understand that aspect. I think the city made a bad decision buying that making a private property into a public property, because what it did is displace all those people, instead of treating it more as a trespassing issue. So I will say that. I think that was a mistake. I think that has caused some of your headache now. But I think that, again, I understand why you're here. The county should probably buck up. But again, we don't have purview over your guys' nuisance laws, your ordinances, your things that you can do locally to help with the situation. And the other piece I want to point out is that I really do think a low-barrier shelter is going to cause problems in your city. It's going to increase your guys' problems. It's not going to decrease your problems.
I don't know that anybody's decided it's going to be in Aberdeen.
I don't know. That'll be up to the other two commissioners, I think.
So I have a question about
Well, I
the
offered-
process here.
I did offer and submit to both mayors tax title properties that the county has on its rolls and said, and I told this to the other two commissioners, take what you want. If you want to put a shelter on one of these pieces of properties, we'll give it to for a dollar.
Aren't they all located in residential areas, very small pieces of property?
Well, you got residential areas where you're at.
Well, not the place I'm thinking.
Well, there are,
I mean, I would rather have it
but where
affect
you're
a
at right
small
now,
portion.
you're in the residential.
So I would say that I would love to see that, and then maybe that's something that Commissioner Ross can bring when we meet, because I don't, there's some all part of
You bet. Some of them are in residential areas, some are not. Some are the lots or the parcels are not buildable, but you're not looking to necessarily build a structure as you are a platform for.
And if you have identified one or two
I need
spots
to-
where you think would be suitable, I think you should point them out. It'd be
I
great.
can't, it's really challenging for me because I don't know the laws. I don't, it's hard enough for us to keep up on what's allowed and everything within the county, let alone each city that we have there. But I did provide a list, and I can provide an updated list to Randy and to the rest. Francine would have it, so, yeah.
Because that is part of, yes, we purchased the Michigan Street property, but again, we need this current council to, see everything that went into, we don't know what they might decide to.
There's 5 new council members that,
And
where they're at with this.
Well, they're new, you're gonna have to educate them and get them up to speed on where
And
to go.
when it came right down to it, at the end of the day, the previous council was agreed to purchase that property, then did not actually vote to move
Utilize
there.
it.
So we need to, we have a sense of urgency because it's only funded through March, but so we've got, it's not gonna be linear. It's gonna, if we're gonna pull this off, we're gonna have to have balls in the air, but all trying to go in the same direction, so.
And this is not this is what we're dealing with now, where we're stuck at now, and a huge expense. But it's not where we're stopping. We have other wheels turning for better solutions and better plans.
Well,
What are some
we're
of those
moving
ideas?
forward.
And we want to bring some of our sister jurisdictions in as well,
Because
honestly.
this isn't just an Aberdeen problem.
No.
And I'm a little frustrated that it seems to be tasked with just Aberdeen taxpayers doing this, and it's just,
Well, I don't think anyone disagrees with you that
Right,
it's
no,
not just an Aberdeen problem, but you have individuals in the tent encampment that are from throughout the county.
Sure.
While your encampment is very visible, it's
Right.
certainly not the only one that is in the county. We have 3 in my district that are one is extremely visible, smaller, and the other 2 are probably close to the same size. And it's a challenge. Where we've ran into the challenge with those is that they're on private property, either DNR land or Rainier or Weyerhaeuser property. I think that we should partner and we should collaborate and that we do have a responsibility as a county to assist where we can. I just ask that we have a discussion on how we can assist and what we can assist with to make sure that there aren't any assumptions or misconceptions on what we can do and can't do.
Goes back to my process question. Who's the point of contact? Is it the council president or is it Lisa, community development, council president? Okay. We'll set up the next meeting.
Yes,
Lisa
please.
pointed behind you.
She'll reach out to us, but I think it's better if it goes from an elected to down.
We agree that's why, you know, we wanted to come, it's a policy level kind of thing we're trying to do, and we all need to kind of do it together.
And I think that it's good to have Ms. Kent and Norma from the county's perspective to talk about some of these things on what may be considered allowable, whether security and some of those things that we've been speaking with Cassie and Curtis and Carolyn about, that we can make sure that the information that we are providing to you and that we're receiving is accurate, and then see where we go from there.
Camp organization, not security.
Well, we'll look at the legal requirements of how.
Well, they just, you know, just so we're clear, they are tasked with doing essentially camp host functions during the day, not at social services, but they are, you know, they're running, you know.
It's kind of like
they have a
Jeff
laundry
Smith
list.
doing the thing for the
the
gold
They have
medal
a laundry
shelter.
list of,
Yeah,
yes.
same thing.
Yeah.
So, but until we have, it's just a very difficult position to fill until we can offer whoever agrees to do it some
But I
level
don't
of
see that in
certainty.
here. I don't see that position even in.
It's included in security. It's the same thing.
It's,
What we had originally thought was
The
$60,000.
$24,000 a month.
Yeah, that would be included in there at $5,000. We figured if we were gonna hire a camp host Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, it would be $60,000 a year. We still have to have somebody on staff in the evenings and on the weekends.
This is the second asterisk.
So there will always be 2 people on site no matter what. So it ended up being the same for security versus camp host. So that's why you see it's $24,000 a month.
And when you meet, I'd love to hear a end goal plan of, you know, slowly getting rid of the camp itself. You know, because isn't that the goal? Is to get to
Our
eventually
end goal
have-
is to be the interim until the county gets their 10-year plan up and running.
Oh.
In which we're a partner.
Those are just warm, fuzzy
Sure.
plans, standard
Okay.
plans, just like that, so. No,
Sure it
is.
no, I'd be curious
No.
to hear
So,
what
I
the
can-
county and the
I
cities.
can give you my
end goal
elevator
plan.
speech.
Sure, okay.
I can give you my elevator speech on how long it's going to take before we see some real progress on dealing with this. We're not going to see real progress on some of these issues until we get downtown Aberdeen out of the floodplain, because I think even in your own plan, it's acknowledged that the ability to add housing units in the area where it's most needed, the Aberdeen Hopeland core, is severely handicapped by the fact that we're in the floodplain. So that North Shore levy is critical to being able to address long-term housing needs on Grays Harbor. So the end game is, right now, the end game is get the levy built. And then we have a real shot at getting some of the low income or other options and improving the housing situation in Aberdeen Hopeland.
Well, your former mayor, to be honest with you, deserves a lot of credit for that, because he brought to the table, was able to acquire tens of millions of dollars for that project. And I agree with you, that will make a huge difference once it's implemented on that. And I know that he fought hard with it through the flood authority and came to us at the Office of Shale and Space.
There's no
the
return
governor's
on
office.
investment for private investors, and there's no federal or state agency that will give you money to build something in the floodplain. And that's where the need is. So.
Well, the reduction alone of the flood insurance rates.
Oh,
is such-
$600 a month for some people.
more than that, thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And not just in Aberdeen, but it expands over into Hopewind. And we've done a lot of the preliminary work from Raymer Street to Fry Creek. We continue to have
Well,
work
you
there.
know I know that.
Yeah, you,
We're on
you
the
do.
flood authority
Yeah,
together.
yeah. But I mean, this goes beyond the flood authority to the state level, and there's been a lot of work there, and continues to be a lot of work. And it isn't without challenges either, with tribal influence and cultural aspects that we have to deal with. But that will be a huge project when it comes to fruition, and should help the city of Aberdeen a tremendous amount.
Commissioner Mayor, I truly think that a long-term solution is we really have a housing shortage, period. And we need, as a community, to work together to create additional housing. And I think that will go a long way to helping solve some of our
That would be
problems.
done at your planning commissions or changing some of your local ordinances. I mean, in our county, 85% of unincorporated Grace Harbor County is in a lifetime, long-term, property tax shift program. And so those aren't going away. And we just met with the Department of Ecology. Well, I just met with the Department of Ecology, and they're saying now that you can't subdivide property because they're bound by the 5,000 gallon limit. So the problem is solvable, but it's the lack of political fortitude that is the problem, in my opinion.
That and developers.
Yeah, developer, who wants to spend all this money when you're looking at the Hearst decision, you're looking at critical areas, shoreline master plans, and all of these who's going to invest in building more property when you're run up against all of these problems? So
Well, you mentioned this morning that where we've previously been able to get a site for 10, 12 and have a well or even 2 wells, and now they've got to put in the Department of Ecology has a, what year was the
So
law?
in 1945 law, they're now pushing on counties and maybe in cities, I don't know where, mostly with counties because we do permit exempt wells. But they're basically saying that if you own 100 acres and you want to start subdividing it, you're going to be bound by that 5,000 gallon a day limit. And if you start subdividing a 100-acre piece of property, it's not going to get you many parcels. So that's kind of
we've been working, and you're right, the levy is going to make a tremendous thing, because it's going to allow some infill development in our floodplain, in our low end, in west end between Aberdeen and Hopewind, which will allow us to add additional housing units. But housing is a key component to trying to, you get asked about reducing, what's your plan for the camp, and it's truly, we are, with the lack of housing, there's no rentals right now.
I disagree with that. I don't think it's lack of housing. I think it's an addiction problem.
I will just say that the population served by the tent shelter is not displaced by a lack of housing. You're correct. We have to be totally honest about how hard this group is to serve, and they don't always know it, but they need our help. And right now, it's a shelter. It's out of the rain, and we just have to keep making sure that when they're ready, we're ready.
There's still a fact that we can only house 1 in 4 people with our current housing, and there's a 39-month wait. And I believe taking the land out of the floodplain will provide an incentive for investment to come into the city, but that won't make the affordable housing problem any less. Because now we'll have outside investors that actually see a way to get a return on their money, and that won't help the low income that need housing. So there will still be a need to provide affordable housing projects in the community.
We have several people in our camp that are on the list for housing with Cat 2 and are just in a waiting pool.
And what'll happen, in fact, just a week ago, I was talking to some folks, and they were saying, what could we do in your community with some money? And they were talking about the homeless and the affordable housing and all these things. I said, no, build a middle income housing, because what'll happen is you'll get a moving up, and it'll free up more lower income housing. And they looked into that and said, that's true. That's what happens almost everywhere. You build a newer housing and it causes a movement effect.
know that there's a company locally that is in the process of building some tiny homes. And like 12 to 15 per month. I think the issue is going to be where those would be located, and but those might be something that if you had a shelter place like we've talked about, say on Michigan Street, just for example, and you put some of those homes, the tiny homes in there, the sheltered homes. I want to call them a hut, but they're not a hut. But you know what I'm talking about.
How kind of cute.
Yeah. Could those be funded with other sources elsewhere? Is there other opportunities for funding that we could look to achieve to be able to house folks in something that is more sustainable and at least semi-permanent? You could even consider it transitional in some
Right.
respects.
There's a specific size that's required to meet the standards for, say, funding that CAP has. Although they're very small, there's a specific size, and there's also a program through the federal government that funds for a prefab unit that's about the shape of a full-size container.
Well, I don't know what the challenges are to something like that, because I just read that in Seattle they're going to discontinue.
We can get through the
Tomorrow is
building
Wednesday.
code right now, 190 square foot house legally. So building code's not a challenge.
And that's provided it has its own sewer and water hookups.
Yes.
The problem is where everybody's going with that type of setup now is they recommend maybe spread around, like maybe 4 units at the
Area.
most, rather than grouping very many of them together. So,
The term tiny houses, I think, comes from the Seattle area. I'm not sure of the dimensions. What I was told was that they're looking to manufacture 15 to 20 per month. They will be all wood manufactured locally with local wood products and local labor. They will have 12 solar panels. They will have solar panels with a 12-volt battery and LED lights on each unit. Units will have some passive solar element and microactive solar element to each. So the proponent is indicating that they are more humane than just tents. Tents would be. I do think that you would have to have them placed, as you mentioned, Pete, only so many in a certain area. I don't believe that these would be large enough to be self-contained with water and sewer. I still think you're going to have sand cans or something.
central.
Yeah.
Well, I know that eventually, at least the previous council, our goal was to not remain in the housing business, and that eventually to, have something that something like that sounds like something maybe the housing board. I don't think the city, we can ask the council, but I don't think the city of Aberdeen wants to be have a housing department.
Well, that was one of the things when we talked about doing a shelter, is you run into who's going to run it, who's going to be liable for it, who's going to insure it, and all those type of things that, and then all of a sudden you have everybody going, well, not me, I don't want to do it. So I think that there are definitely some conversations that has to be had. Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that Housing Authority has found problems with is they can find capital dollars to build stuff. They can't find dollars to run it operationally and maintain it over a long period of time. That's
We
just went
understand.
through.
Hence us being
Well,
here.
and that's the big problem, no matter what we look for. We could get the money to put up a Lehigh apartment, but we can't get anybody to pay the money.
Yeah, I mean, well, and the thing is too, is when you have open spots, you have open beds at the Union Gospel Mission,
We can't use that because it's a religious ordinance.
Well, there's 3 requirements, shower, you have to listen to a sermon, and you have to be sober. I mean, those are pretty low requirements. And if you have empty spaces, how we're talking about building facilities for people when we can't even build a union gospel mission. I don't know. My expectation, though, moving forward would be when the city and the commissioner meeting with our staff bring forth some kind of a solution that involves maybe a 2-year plan to sunset this. So, okay, maybe we have a site, but after 2 years, this goes away because they solve the problem. And that's something that I may be able
Well,
to
that's
consider.
a function of how well the economy does and how well the state funds other problems, because this isn't just homelessness, it's addiction, it's mental health, it's a combination of addiction and mental health, it's a combination of affordable housing, so there's a lot of variables here. The immediate problem is how do we help sustain the current plan to house the most vulnerable in our community.
I like goals, like a good sunset on something like this would.
And a sunset's not a bad thing to have in place, it just has to be.
Well, when we first put this together, the idea was that everybody signed up for social services that's appropriate to whatever.
Coordinate it.
Make it a requirement.
It is a requirement.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And so the hope is that the camp will get smaller and smaller because of that. But the problem is the available housing is already maxed out.
Believe it or not, the camp actually, we've 12 people have gone, 11 of them successfully to treatment. We have, there are several people in there that are suffering from mental illness, not so much drug addiction, that it's kind of sad to see that they're not getting the help that they need. You've got people that have been waiting on CAPS lists, so we've got a real big mixture, but we're seeing quite a bit of a turnover. We know that the tassel did not, account for everybody within even city limits, that there are people outside of city limits that are staying in tassel as well. So we are seeing that turnover and people coming and going, but the people that are there are our local people. And we are working with them, and CAP has been coming in and doing their best to try to get them into the programs that they need. But it has reduced itself, though we have increased the number of sites purely because there's people that are unsheltered throughout the county that are learning and coming.
How many people are still there that you can't enforce the ordinance on right now? Roughly, is there more than 20? More than 50?
Easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're there because we have services there.
The county's point in time count for unsheltered was 117.
Well,
I
there's a
could've
new
got-
count next week.
Oh, okay.
This is this week. There's one in Ocean Shores on the 23rd, and there's one in Aberdeen on the 24th.
Yeah, they're scattered throughout, and we do
Those
our
are the
best,
ones I
and we
know.
end up chasing around quite a bit. But yeah, there's more that we can't get, obviously, within the current task.
And having a camp, just in general, from public safety, from our fire department and our police department, they've both strongly encouraged it, because for them, if everyone's scattered throughout town, it makes it weakens our
them
departments.
concentrated
Right,
is much
exactly,
more efficient.
and yeah, so they are very supportive of having this currently. Certainly in the perfect world, we'd not like the situation at all, but we all live there, so.
I sit there, and I'll have to be honest with you, playing devil's advocate a little bit. You see, I understand Wes's comments to let's look forward for 24 months or 2 years, and what are the solutions in getting rid of it. But we've driven up to Seattle or Linwood or Tacoma in the last several months.
Olympia.
I'm kind of proud of us. We don't have this. I don't know.
We aren't seeing it like they are
Well, I
right
hope we
along the
haven't hit the
freeway.
peak, but we don't.
But
Our policies have to be different than theirs, though.
Pardon me?
Our policies have to be different than theirs.
It does, I just don't, what I'm saying is I don't know, when I talked to someone down at the river camp and he said, I've been doing this for 35 years, from Coos Bay up to here, that's their life. How you get someone to change that mentality and put them in a situation where there is accountability and rules is going to be extremely challenging. Not that you shouldn't. Oh, it's extremely uncomfortable.
You make it
if they don't rebel against you. I just think that my concern isn't. I mean, there's lots of different directions you can go and tangents you can go on. I just don't think that 2 years, let alone 5 or 10 years, is even realistic. That's just my opinion. There's just some, and if you look, it may be realistic for this group, but then you're going to have others from other areas of the county that either come here or come out of the woodwork to come to Aberdeen because they're, it's just.
You're not going to finance yourself out of this.
No, you're not.
The county's tried.
You're not.
$1 billion in 1 year, $105,000 per homeless person.
But I do subscribe to the idea to bookend it though, because I'm fairly certain that if we didn't have this middle of March deadline, we wouldn't be sitting here today. And because that was what I said, if we fund it, all of a sudden, okay, we're good now. So bookending is a good thing, and we should look at bookending it. Putting a hard, to take a good look. Yes,
Agree.
Thank you. Commissioner Conner, I heard, and I do apologize for coming in so late early on other situations that happened to me this morning. I'm really interested, I heard you say the sunset and the 2-year and the plan. I'm really interested in general. What would success look like?
No camp.
No camp?
Yeah.
So does that mean no camp because the folks are gone, or does that mean no camp because there is an alternative low barrier shelter, some sort of shelter, or does that mean no camp because everyone has a permanent home? What does that mean?
No camp means that you found a solution for each individual in that camp, one way or another.
So we solve homelessness.
well, I agree.
Health,
The county's plan
addiction,
calls
mental
for
health.
one-on-one focused behavioral health resources for people in an unsheltered circumstance. And I would say that should be, that's certainly something that we should look at how to do that. But people.
And for more, just aware of this or not, the mental health crisis center in Aberdeen closed with 2 weeks' notice on December 12th.
Yep, we just
Yeah, we
talked.
know.
Okay. Okay,
It's
sorry.
actually no.
Yeah.
It was, well, it was, yeah, so I.
We have a mobile unit as well.
Yeah.
We do have the mobile unit still in place, but
So have fun, we'll travel.
they're indicating that the closure was due to underutilization, and we have some concerns there.
We don't
Yeah.
believe that's necessary.
Okay. So, we were talking about, and I bring it up, and I apologize, like I said, for not coming
No,
back
you're
on
good.
time, but it's, mental health is a big component, and I think that you all are very well aware, we've all mentioned it. So if there is not a service available for folks in crisis, it's a challenge. I know that community director and I were both witnesses when we had mental health professionals come to the fellow who didn't have the circles were lost. We had a great conversation, and some mental health professionals came to know that it was his medication. And so, and that's just one, and I think I feel like I'm preaching to the choir as far as I as an employee of the city and as someone who helps deal with our legal crisis, which also has a lot of mental health component as well as substances, I would appreciate hearing back from my elected officials how.
It's disconcerting knowing that the governor's plan is to push mental health back down to the local level, but he hasn't told us how he's going to fund it. And in the meantime, we're transitioning from a VHO to a
BHASO with the CAS and the CIHS, which.
And
And
none
the
of it's working.
EIO.
None of it's working very well, and the funding's getting more dispersed and be landing into other pockets than the mental health people.
And
And it's a
people need mental
huge
health.
component.
Well, we have community courts and therapy courts, and now the state's saying, well, you get your judges paid for by the state in some regard, you guys can start paying for that yourselves. So, that's not going to do anything but cause detriment to those programs that we already have. I want to take a step back before we adjourn real quickly. You're welcome. Just want to make sure I introduce the public. Casey Morrison, that's here from Aberdeen, and then I mentioned Patty earlier, Patty Thomas from Aberdeen, and then you are, ma'am? Trisha Deacon from Montesino. So we'll add that to our roll. If we don't have anything else before us, we'll go ahead and have Brandy meet with Deanne and chat.
And your next meeting, your full council meeting on the 29th, so we want to try to have something in the workshop.
Workshop.
That would be, it would be
Between
nice
now
if we
and
could
29th.
report out and share and have something for them to do.
What time is that meeting? Is that in the evening?
7
o'clock?
We have an ad hoc meeting before that.
I don't know.
We're having a meeting tomorrow night.
Well, the council meeting.
No,
Yeah,
Regular-
but not ad hoc.
regular.
the ad hoc is February 5th.
Better, okay.
So, yeah. All right, well, thank you for coming together.
Thank
We
you.
hope that we can put something in place where we can partner with one another and
Thank you for
serve
the
the
ask.
people that need us. So appreciate you being here.
I think this has been a very productive meeting today. And I want to thank all you commissioners for allowing us to be here, talk with you, and feel this out, and we'll work this out together. I think Deanne and the city has done a great job in putting this together and presenting it. I'm looking forward to finding some solutions. Maybe even next time we meet.
Well, here's the next step. So thanks so
Yep.
much. You're adjourned.